Are you a student who believes in freedom? Are you a student who rocks at writing? Then head on over to NHLibertyEssay.com. NHLibertyEssay.com is sponsoring a writing contest. The best essay wins up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Get out your pen and defeat the other students. Head to NHLibertyEssay.com. Dave Ridley here, signing in with a general update on New Hampshire Liberty News for this January 20th, 2008. Actually, this is going to be more opinion than news at the beginning. I have some news toward the end of the report. But I just had a couple of thoughts I wanted to share with regard to civil disobedience. We've seen 5 or 10 really effective acts of civil disobedience that have been undertaken by liberty lovers in New Hampshire since 2003. Some have been more effective than others, but I would like to sort of put out an idea of what I call the 4 cylinders of civil disobedience. You want to hit on all 4 cylinders to do the ideal civil disobedience. You would to do the ideal civil disobedience, you would do one that hits on all 4 cylinders, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This here is a shot of probably the most famous and successful Free Stater act of civil disobedience in New Hampshire, Mike Fisher's delivery of an illegal manicure. This is the one to imitate. This is the one that hit on all 4 cylinders, probably better than any of the others I've seen. First, the first cylinder is, I consider it to be the issue of having moral high ground. You want the moral high ground. The second cylinder, you want a lot of publicity. The third cylinder, you want a lot of sympathy, and the fourth cylinder, you want change. So, morality, publicity, sympathy, change. Mike Fisher had completely attained the moral high ground simply because he was doing something so innocuous that you would never imagine that a person could be arrested for it. He attained publicity. He was on the front page of almost every newspaper in the state. He was on WMUR television. He got even some nationwide coverage. At the third level, sympathy, very few people objected to what Mike did. It was one of those, usually civil disobedience, divides people. It gets them, some people get angry about it and so forth. There's very little of that directly connected to Mike Fisher's act. And I guess the fourth thing in terms of change, well, there was change. The law regarding manicurists and barbers did change pretty substantially about 1.5 years or 2 years after he committed this act of civil disobedience. Now, there was a direct attempt to make a change, which we called the Outlaw Manicurist Bill, that failed maybe 6-8 months after the initial act. But later on, another act or another bill came up that was successful and changed the law so that it's much easier to get a barber's license or manicurist license, I think, in New Hampshire. So anyway, and for those of you who maybe have not given enough information about Mike Fisher's act, but what he did was he went in front of the Board of Barbering office and delivered his outlaw manicure there. So that's the location you're seeing when you see the pictures of Mike's civil disobedience. But anyway, the 4 cylinders of civil disobedience: morality, publicity, sympathy, change. Good to have them all lined up and a good chance of winning all 4 of them before you decide to commit an act of civil disobedience. NHLibertyEssay.com. Now an update on a story involving people who did not follow all 4 of these rules, but who nevertheless are being punished far beyond what they deserve.
My message is just the more support the better. The Browns are right. There is no law.
4 supporters of jailed tax protesters Ed and Elaine Brown go on trial, or at least are scheduled to go on trial, January 28th. Presumably in this building, the federal courthouse on 55 Pleasant Street in Concord. The 4 men are Danny Riley, shown here. Jason Gerhard, who I don't have a picture of. Bob Wolf, who I don't think I have a picture of, but maybe you'll see one pop up. And then the fourth one is Reno Gonzalez. I think most of them are charged with delivering one or more weapons to Ed Brown's house, which of course is ironic because if you think about it, the institution which is charging them, the federal government, has delivered millions upon millions of weapons to people and governments who are far worse than Ed Brown, and they've forced you to pay for it. The Plainfield Four are accused of simply using their own money, not taxpayer money, to help a man who is a cranky tax protester defend his home. No one's alleging they sent the money to a terrorist or used the weapons or sent weapons to a terrorist or to genocidal maniacs like the federal government has done. Anyway, some of these guys are facing up to 20 years in prison, while federal operatives who helped get weapons to Hussein and any number of other crazy criminals we've supported over the years probably still get pension checks. So whatever the flaws of the men on trial in this case, there is, as always, a question of proportion and fairness. So we'll see what happens as the fallout from the Ed and Elaine Brown situation continues. This is Dave Ridley signing out for RidleyReport.com. NHLibertySA.com